Machiavelli was not writing for monsters. He was writing for the decent man who keeps losing, for the person with principles, the one who tells the truth, the one who tries to do things the right way, the one who still believes that if your intentions are pure enough, the world will eventually reward you. Machiavelli looked at that person and gave him a warning, a cold one, because history, he noticed, does not belong to the kind. It belongs to the cunning, to the ruthless, to the people willing to do what others are too moral, too hesitant, too clean to even consider. That is the uncomfortable center of Machiavelli's thought. The wicked often win, and they do not win by accident. They win because they understand something nice. People spend their entire lives refusing to admit. Scruples are slow. Principles are heavy. Conscience hesitates. But ambition moves fast. The ruthless lie without flinching. They distort facts without shame. They threaten when persuasion fails. They charm when force is too obvious. They seduce, flatter, distract, and confuse. They smile while they reposition the knife, and while the good are still explaining themselves. The wicked have already taken the city. That is what Machiavelli saw. He looked at Florence. He looked at the courts, the merchants, the princes, the alliances, the betrayals, and he came to a conclusion so offensive that people have spent centuries trying to sanitize it. Goodness is not enough. Not because goodness is worthless, because goodness alone is defenseless. Most people are raised on a beautiful illusion that being good means not only wanting good things, but using good methods to get them. If you want a serious world, you must speak seriously. If you want justice, you must persuade gently. If you want kindness, you must be kind even to your enemies. If you want truth to prevail, you must never descend into manipulation. It sounds noble. It sounds civilized. It sounds exactly like the kind of advice that gets people crushed. Because Machiavelli noticed a problem no idealist wants to touch. It doesn't work. Not consistently. Not in politics. Not in war. Not in business. Not in courts of power. Not in rooms where outcomes are decided by pressure, ego, fear, and appetite. Again and again, he watched decent men get outmaneuvered by shameless ones. The honest man arrives with arguments. The predator arrives with strategy. The honest man hopes to be understood. The predator studies what must be done. And when it is over, the world remembers the victor, not the virtue of the defeated. That is why Machiavelli wrote The Prince, not as a love letter to tyranny, not as a handbook for cartoon villains, but as a survival manual for people who are tired of finishing last. Its message, stripped of all academic politeness, is brutal. Be as good as you wish, but never be so devoted to goodness that you become harmless. That is the line, because once you become harmless, you are no longer moral. You are useful to your enemies. Machiavelli's point was never that you should become evil for pleasure. His point was more unsettling. If you want to protect anything good in this world, you may have to learn the methods of people who have no goodness at all. That is what makes him so dangerous. He doesn't flatter your innocence. He exposes its cost. He asks, what exactly has your purity achieved? What has your restraint built? How much injustice still stands because you wanted to remain elegant, while fighting people who were willing to become feral? That is where Machiavelli turns from philosopher into something colder, something closer to a prosecutor. because he understood where this obsession with being nice came from. The West had been raised on the image of sacred meekness, on the story of Jesus of Nazareth, the gentle, forgiving, compassionate figure who suffered, loved, endured, and was elevated into eternity. And Machiavelli, with almost surgical cruelty, points to the earthly facts. In practical terms, he says, that life ended in humiliation, mocked, abandoned, crushed by power. Now, whether one agrees with that judgment spiritually is not the point. Machiavelli's point is political, worldly, strategic. He is saying if you are trying to operate inside history, inside institutions, inside power, then innocence is not a shield. It is often a target. And that is why The Prince is so often misunderstood. People think it is a book about how to be a tyrant. No, it is a book about what the decent must learn from tyrants if they do not wish to be ruled by them forever. That distinction changes everything. Machiavelli is not worshiping wolves. He is warning sheep that admiration for gentleness will not save them from teeth. The effective leader, and today that could mean a politician, a CEO, a founder, an activist, a strategist, even a public thinker, cannot afford to be naive. They must understand intimidation. They must understand theater. They must understand leverage. They must understand fear. They must understand timing, image, deception, pressure, and controlled force. Not because these things are beautiful, because their enemies already use them. That is the part weak moralists never grasp. Refusing to learn power does not abolish power. It just guarantees that someone uglier will master it first. The good politician must study the corrupt one. The serious entrepreneur must study the slick one. The honest reformer must study the manipulator. The builder must study the destroyer. Because the battlefield does not care who had the purest intentions. It only records who altered reality. And that is Machiavelli's deepest insult to human vanity. You are not measured by what you meant. You are measured by what you made happen. That is hard to hear, because intentions are comforting. Intentions are private. Intentions let you feel noble in failure. But outcomes are merciless. Outcomes ask, did you win? Did you secure the future? Did you protect what mattered? Did you change anything? Or did you simply keep your hands clean? While the world was handed over to people with dirtier ones. Machiavelli forces us into a place most people spend their lives avoiding. He forces us to admit that our enemies may be our greatest teachers. Not because they are right, because they are effective. And effectiveness leaves clues. The people you despise most may understand influence better than you do. They may understand fear better than you do. They may understand loyalty, narrative, timing, human weakness, and strategic cruelty better than you do. And if they do, then your disgust is irrelevant. Your disgust will not stop them. Your moral superiority will not stop them. Your refusal to stoop to their level will not stop them. It will only make their victory easier. This is why Machiavelli still disturbs people centuries later, because he attacks one of our favorite lies, the lie that our failure proves our virtue, the lie that we are unsuccessful because we are too good for the game, the lie that if we lost, it must be because the world is corrupt and we are pure. Sometimes that is true, but often we lost because we were sentimental, because we were strategically illiterate, because we mistook weakness for innocence, because we thought sincerity was enough, because we imagined the world would honor our intentions, while our enemies studied our blind spots. Machiavelli tears away that excuse. He says, "No, you did not lose because you were too good. You lost because you refused to learn. You refused to study the methods of those who actually know how power moves. You refused to understand that to defeat a predator, outrage is not enough. You need teeth of your own, not to become evil, but to make good capable of surviving contact with evil. That is the real lesson. Not be cruel for fun, not betray everyone, not become a villain in love with destruction. The lesson is colder, smarter, far more dangerous. Learn every weapon, understand every tactic, read every dark impulse in the human animal. Know how fear works, know how image works, know how manipulation works, know how loyalty is bought, broken, and redirected. And then with discipline, decide what you will use, when, and why. Because in the end, the world is not changed by the people with the warmest hearts. It is changed by the people who can turn vision into force, by the people who can carry an intention through resistance, through sabotage, through deception, through opposition, through human ugliness. That is why Machiavelli matters. He is not here to corrupt the good. He is here to harden them, to tell the decent that decency without strategy is a sacrificial offering, to tell the well-meaning that the world does not yield to sweetness alone, to tell the pure-hearted that if they cannot bear to study darkness, then darkness will steady them and conquer them. So no, Machiavelli is not whispering to tyrants. He is whispering to the naive, to the honorable, to the clean, to the hesitant, to the ones still shocked that the manipulative rise so fast. He leans in and says the one thing they never wanted to hear. Your enemies have been training, and you have been pretending that virtue is a strategy. It isn't, not by itself. Good intentions are not enough. A warm heart is not enough. Dreaming well is not enough. If you want to leave a mark on the world, if you want to protect anything worth protecting, if you want good to do more than kneel nobly before power, then you must learn how power actually works, even from those you hate, especially from those you hate. Because the final humiliation is not becoming ruthless. The final humiliation is being defeated by people you were too proud to steady.